Right, right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're hearing or listening to this broadcast. So the mandate to multiply leadership is the next course where we want to look at on this series. And I've got to say, by way of starting, that leadership is obligated to mentor. The purpose of leadership is not the perpetuation of self, but to lead followers to leadership. Meaning that if a leader has done a good work, the leader should not remain simply enamored by the leader, but they should also discover their own leadership and own the vision and take the vision forward, even in the absence of the catalytic leader. By catalytic leader, I mean the leader to whom the mandate was delivered to originally. Okay, so looking at this, the first statement I'd like to make there is that leadership is not about you. Like I said, it's not the promotion of self, it's not the perpetuation of self, it's not setting up the leader as an object of worship. No. That, in some other language, could be termed to be humanism, where the leader is seen as the icon, the object, the center of it all. That's not what leadership is about. That is perhaps personality cult, personality worship. But we've seen all through history that whenever that is promoted, there is only one outcome. It always ends in disintegration, disillusionment, and scattering. So a leader, a true leader, does not want people to be tied to him or her as the one to whom their lives depend. No. A true leader wants to help people discover their own leadership and understand the vision and commit to pursuing the vision, even at the cost, at personal cost. So leadership is not about you, but about the people. Your leadership must be people-centric if you must make your mark. On the last broadcast, if you have listened to that, or if you don't, just look at the archives. What we are saying is that leadership is about the people, and the leader is actively leading people to an alternative for certainly better future. If where you're taking people to is not better, then it's better to leave them where they are. So a leader is taking people on a journey, a transformative journey, a journey of change, or change for the better. And this is very important, because it is certainly possible for the blind to lead, but we know what the destination will be. It will be disaster. It will be falling into the ditch. So this is why a true leader wants to not only take people on the journey, but to help them transform from just being followers into leaders and agents of change, people who can bring about transformation in their environments. You see, as it is, particularly in this century that we live in, it is not at all times that a leader and his followers will be co-located in the same place. So what you're really saying is that wherever the leaders in training are found, they can bring about the same transformative effect in their own local arrangement, local environment, their surroundings. So, question then is, what is the true call of leadership? Well, first point there is to multiply your leadership, and that is the mandate of effective leadership. That is, if where you're going can become, let me use this word, if people can buy into the transformative change that the leader is advocating, and they commit to it and make it their own, then your leadership is not just something that resides with you, it's now catching on, if I can use that statement. The leadership influence is now being embraced, and that is critical. So multiplying leadership is the crux of effective leadership. You do not want to be the sole leader to whom everything hangs. You want to have what I could call an organization of leaders. Now, don't forget that last time we were saying that personal leadership is really where this journey begins, where you know that everyone is a leader, but in their areas of gifting. So the apex leader is really taking people on a journey. I look at this like a pack of lions. When you have a pack of lions, or shall I say, what's the word now? It's not a pack of lions actually. That'll be a pack of wolves. Is the what's the what do you describe the 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 pride of lion? That's what I'm looking for. If you have the pride of lions, you would notice that every every animal in that pride is a lion, even though they may have the leading lion, but every animal in the pride is a lion. You would never find a dog in the pride of lions. You would never find a fox in the pride of lions. The pride of lions will consist of lions and solely lions. And every one of them is a lion. Even if the lion is still a cub, it's still a lion. So leadership, therefore, is helping leaders to become, is that constant journey to becoming. And that is really what we're saying. And to become, it's imperative then, therefore, that there is a true environment where the cultivation of that leadership can happen. So multiplying leadership is the centerpiece that holds the accomplishment of a leader. Multiplying leadership, seeing leaders develop in an environment, is the most important, noticeable, refreshing, exciting, attractive. Can I also add another word? It's a demanding part of leadership. Because at times, it's easy to relocate people than to make them change their minds. Now, if we were just dealing with machines, you could say that should be a very easy job, just raise leadership like, like a production factory. But it doesn't work that way. Human beings are complex creatures. So, but if a leader would be successful, the hallmark of that success will be to see the transformation of people who only think like followers becoming people who think as leaders. And that's why we're saying that change has to happen in the mind. That transformation has to happen in the mind and begins to show forth in behaviors, in choices, and in physical activities that happen in that leader's life. But that is a key aspect of leadership. It's that production aspect of a leader, where it's not just that the leader has discovered his own personal leadership, but it's also helping other people to transform into the mindset, the attitude of a leader. Okay, so if a leader ignores this mandate, then all of the leader's work, without any gainsaying, goes down the drain. Because your leadership must not end with you. And all your leadership work cannot and must not end with you. Otherwise, all the work that is done is literally a waste. There's something going on in the United Kingdom right now, and it's I'll call it an active passing it on is happening, because right now, as I'm speaking, the ascension of the new king is going on. And in fact, the proclamation has been made, and you're just seeing that change of leadership from one person, from the previous monarch to the new king. Assuming that all that monarchy ended with the last king, it doesn't matter how well she did, it will have been a failure. But if you look at a crown, the way a crown is designed to be round, meaning the monarchy must continue. Meaning it must reinvent itself, it must continue and must not stop. All right, that is one true observation of leadership that we are seeing around us. And even if you extend this to various other organizations, whether it's in the business environment or any other environment, you see that certain continuity, the continuous production or raising of the people who will step in and hold the mantle of leadership in every environment and every organization. This is important. So the question is, what do we need to do to ensure that this process is not a failure and actually succeeds? If it's this important, what do we need to do? Well, according to studies and practices that have been trialed and tested over time, not only in our generation, but in generations past, all through history, you see certain aspects that are important to this mandate of raising and multiplying leadership. I want to reiterate again that you do not want just an organization with a leader, because it means if that leader exits naturally or unnaturally by any other means, that organization will be scattered. That's where that adage comes from in scripture that says, you strike the sheep, you strike the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter. But that will be true only if there's a shepherd with sheep. But if that shepherd has been wise to raise other shepherds, what's going to happen? If you strike the apex shepherd, yes, there can be periods of pain, mourning, but inevitably, you will see other shepherds rising to the mantle, rising to the challenge. That's why you don't want to have an organization with just a leader. You want to have an organization of leaders. As a matter of fact, for me, I consider my job to be raising leaders in any context that I'm found. I do not want anything and everything to depend on me. I'll put it this way. If you want to do this experiment, you can in your own time. Put some water in a bowl. Yeah, maybe after this training, put some water in a bowl dip your hand into it, and then pull your finger out. And I want to just give you an answer before we think too deeply. That you will simply see that there is no void created in that pool of water. Why? Yes, your finger will be wet, your hand will be wet, but water will always find its level. It means then that it doesn't matter how prominent a leader is. Everything is not dependent on you. And ultimately, people can move on from you. People can certainly move on from the leader. So the leader cannot live like, oh, everything depends on me. Without me, nothing can happen. No, that would be a huge mistake. So how do we then go about this process of multiplying leadership? The first aspect to mention here is modeling. Think about that word modeling. If you want to produce bread or cakes and you want to make many of a kind, what do? You find a model that will produce those many variations or copies of that kind of bread. So your work is on the model. You want to get the model right. Once you get the model right, then you can begin to produce as many copies of that kind. The kind we're talking about is the kind, the mindset, people with the mindset of leadership who see their job as being transformative in their environment. Which means there must be a model of a leader. Now, that model, it had better not just been a personality, because what we are not looking for a personality cult. We are not looking for someone that you say, oh, right, he's the exact. Well, I'm going to caveat what I'm saying as well, but let me land that first. It's not really just the personality we're looking for, in the sense of a human personality that we are so enamored by that we just want to become him. So a leader is not trying to make people to be himself. Is looking to work with people whose minds can be transformed. I will recall and point your attention to leaders in history. Look at Moses. Moses was not trying to create another Moses. He was saying to these millions of people, there is a nation that we have the opportunity to create or to go into. That is the vision ahead of us. How many of you would like to go to that nation? Initially, they disagreed, but ultimately, they started to come around to the idea. And they reluctantly or by some other means decided to go on the journey. To do what? To go become a nation of people. A lot happened in the way. Accidents happened, crisis happened, but the nation they are going to has not changed. The destination has not changed. Do you even recall that even Moses, as the apex leader, was taken out of the way? But they still got to the destination, even though the leadership taking them to that destination had changed. It now became the mandate of Joshua to take them to that land. So it was ultimately not about Moses. In fact, it was even not about Joshua. It was about the nation they were going to and what that nation would be. Bear in mind that that mandate was originally given to Abraham. And in fact, can I even suggest to you that the mandate was not originally given to Abraham. It was given to Abraham's dad, Terah. Terah was on his way to the land of Canaan, and he stopped in Haran and died there. Now, Abraham picked up the mantle, and then Isaac, and then Jacob. And ultimately, it came to Moses and came on to Joshua. Joshua was the one with that privilege to lead people into the vision. But you could see that all through that time, there was always the succession, the modeling of this is what we are to be. This is what to be to get to actualize that vision. This is the mind to have to actualize that vision. So modeling is about presenting the ideals that takes you to where you're going. So 5 key points there. There's modeling, there's mentoring, there's monitoring, there is motivating, and then there's movement. Let's go on and look at this in order. Modeling, really, I mean, I think we commonly hear the word used, role model. And the point of the role model, as I said, is not a personality transfer. No. Unfortunately, this is so common in our day, where people want to sound like someone. People want to just copy someone's physical movement. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's about, if you can go on mute if you're not speaking, that will be helpful, because the session is being recorded. So it's not about just copying someone. It's not about sounding like someone. It's about the vision and the kind of attitude, the kind of disposition, the state of mind, the mindset that can function in order to make that vision a reality. If you can mute yourself, that'll be helpful. That will remove this distraction. All right. Okay. So, can you ensure that you are muted if you're not speaking? That should be a good practice, standard practice. If you come on stream, mute yourself, please. Okay. So the significance of modeling is that it produces results way more than just telling people. Let me put it this way. I'm not sure if you've heard the expression that children learn by example than by precept. Meaning that if you are to help people to achieve something, the best way to help them to get it is to show them the example. Instructions are not enough. Just telling someone, go there, is not enough. A leader does not point the finger and say, go there. A leader says, follow me. I am going, come along. Where we are going is more important than me. It's more important than even you. But we agree to go there. And a leader will say, well, I'm going regardless. I hope you follow. And that's where inspiration comes in, where you think, okay, I agree that you can lead me there. I can see that you are going there, and I want to go with you. So a leader must be able, like as I said on the previous session, to inspire that confidence, that courage. The credibility must be there to take people on the journey. But what we're now saying is, whilst on that journey, the modeling of character, the modeling of competence, the modeling of the attitudes, the behaviors, the disposition is critical to getting results. And the idea of modeling, if you think about it, let's look at the example of what happens in apprenticeship. So assuming I'm a carpenter and I'm raising or training apprentices, how do I get them to know how to cut or saw planks of wood? I'm not going to say, okay, that's the saw, take it, start to saw. Well, you can waste a lot of wood and you know how costly woods are these days. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say, listen, watch me do it. So think about what happens in an apprenticeship workshop. You take the saw and you say, hey, apprentices, come watch me. Now, this is how you hold your saw, and this is the direction, the movement that gives you an effective cutting of wood. So you want to model, you want to show first. So it's watch me as I do it. So a true leader will not want to alienate his followers, but bring them into the environment, into the conditions where they can see that leader operate. How does this leader function? How does this leader handle pressure? How does this leader handle criticism? How does this leader handle difficult moments? How does this leader relate to people? How does this leader treat people? How does this leader handle himself? How does this leader handle his family? Does he have a good family? Does he love his wife? Does he or she look after the children? Is she moving from one crisis to another all the time? If this leader is into business, how does he handle business? Does he bribe? Does he have any credibility, any integrity? This is what it means to model. You're showing the example. You're saying, watch me, I'm doing it. If he's invited to a meeting, does he go late? Is he there on time? How does he speak to people? Does he respect and command respect? Or is he someone who is very autocratic, who wants to stamp on everyone? This is what it means when we talk about modeling. You want to show the example. And the example is there on screen. Gandhi modeled a kind of selfless, non-violent resistance that the likes of Martin Luther and a few others looked at as a great example and act to follow. But the leader cannot say, well, let's just have a non-violent resistance, and then you find him fighting in the corner. His word and his action do not match. That is a leader without integrity. You cannot model leadership to anyone when your word and your action do not match. So when we talk about leadership, this is not trying to whip up people's sentiment and ego to think I'm going to get a position and then I'm going to now be dictating to people what to do. I'm going to be, lining them into action. That's not what leadership is. At best, that may just be a demagogue. And we're not talking about demagogues. We're talking about true leadership and modeling what that is. The watchword, the mindset is, I must be what I say. What I'm saying and what I do must be one. In other words, integrity is key. Integrity is the integration of words, beliefs, in fact, of beliefs, words, and action. Meaning the goal of integrity is to be integrated into one. So I do it, you watch me. That's why I use the example of a carpenter. Let me show you how to cut a wood. So my question then is, do you have anyone who models to you true leadership or leadership? Do you have a role model? A role means function. Is that a function you're aspiring to, and you see someone who functions in a way that represents the ideals you are aspiring to? Let's move on. The next aspect is mentoring. And in my opening statement, I said leadership is obligated to mentor. Is obligated to mentor. Mentoring is I want to use the word being the example and showing the example and bringing people along to see the example. So in the first instance, you see the leader do it. But in the second instance, the apprentice, the trainee, the leader in training is seeing it, is part of that process. Is part of that process. Now, that trainee is already on that same journey, because you do not get mentored in something that you are not going to do. The very word mentoring shows that you are going on a journey and someone is showing you what that journey looks like. It's literally is the word that people would also say discipleship. You are being taken on a journey. But of course, you must have the model, someone who truly represents the ideal of what you're after. And then the mentoring comes in. The most significant aspect of mentoring is comparable to, in a parental sense, father and son relationship, or mother and daughter, because you are learning by imitating. As you come on screen, can you mute yourself? Mute yourself as you come on screen. Okay? It's about imitation. Another word is mimicking. When I say mimicking, you are not trying to sound like, so some people, they hear a particular leader talk in a particular way, and they want to copy the tonal sound of that leader. That is just a charade. That's a charade. I don't need to sound like who now? I respect a lot of leaders, but I don't have to sound like them tonal in tone, in voice tone. No. It's not trying to speak like someone. No, it goes beyond all this superficial thing. It's more of in the attitude, in the competencies, in the character. I want to learn what you know. I want to imbibe the values I see in you. I respect this, and I really want to be trained in this. For example, if you're someone who struggles with punctuality, and you say that when your apex leader is going into an event, is there on time, that calls out a responsibility on you to say, you know what, never will I be late for an event again. And that becomes the value of punctuality becomes something you imbibe, because you can see someone model it. That for me is part of what I call mentoring. Mentoring is very broad, but we're just kind of keeping it, just fairly and high level in this discussion. But the key word there is, I do it and you watch me. I am a good example for you, i.e. the leader that you are working with is showing you the thing that you aspire to. And the question here is, do you have a mentor? Are you learning from someone? I want to be careful with that word mimicking because it can be misconstrued. But I hope you get it right in the context we are talking about. Who are you learning from? Not just who are you trying to copy. So someone will say a particular leader dress, maybe always wear blue. You say, oh, I must always wear blue too because the leader I respect wears blue. That's not what you're talking about. He always put, when it cuts his hair, he always has a pattern to the right. Well, what if you are going bald? Where are you going to put your pattern? So we're not talking about those superficial things. Oh, he always wears white. I will always wear white too, so I can look like my leader. That's not what you're talking about. Those are superficial elements. I'm talking about the character, the content of character. I'm talking about the competence. See, in leadership, you should always remember that your competence and your character go hand in hand. They are mutually important. Let's move on because of our time. The next aspect or another aspect is monitoring. And this is where you are now immersing the leader in training into the practice. This is like, you know what they call teacher training. Back in the when teachers would be sent on the training to go and actually practice their trade of teaching. And I know, I remember back then in the university, there was this SciWest program, or you can call it, they call it apprenticeship, or what they call it again, industry training, where you're already doing a course in the university, and then you're sent out into the industry to go and see it done and then learn it. Yes, yes, IT and those, they call it various things. But I'm sure most people here will be familiar with that idea. So this is, you do it, and then you have supervision. You have someone just letting you do it, but providing guidance. Don't forget where you're starting from. First, you watch someone do it. First, you identify someone who does it. Next, you are invited to watch. See, watching is not doing something. This is mentally, you are mentally interacting with the practice and the life of the leader. This is where you are observing. Now, you are coming to a point here now where you are now physically, actively, practically participating. You are now doing it. You are being put in the environment where you can do it under supervision. Now, monitoring is a form of delegated leadership, but the key here is to monitor and to provide timely feedback. I have to say that mentoring invariably contains this, because if someone is to mentor you properly, they will allow you to also get into the act and then monitor and give feedback from time to time. But we're just saying, if we segment this thing in how it happens in a logical sense, it's just for you to understand the various aspects of what it takes to cultivate leadership, right? So it doesn't mean that these are like firm, hard segments or hard layers. We're just saying that all of these are involved in the leading or in the transformation, in the raising, in the multiplication of leaders. It's a process, yes. In fact, I remember one of the things we said in the first course, that everyone is designed to be leaders, but you must become a leader through a process. Now, the process aspect is what we are going into today. This process involves modeling, yes, involves mentoring, involves monitoring. The slogan here is, you do it and I watch you. And in that, say, if I'm to ask you, and I want you to type this in a chat, what do you think must be the attitude of someone who is going through this process, who is being watched and supported and giving feedback? What do you think is a key attribute of this leader in training? I hope one of the words you type in is meekness and humility, because an arrogant person cannot take feedback. Someone who thinks he already knows will not be open to receiving feedback. He's going to think, leave me alone. What are you telling me? I already know that. If you already know it, then you do not need to be in a leadership mentoring process. And there is where the leader in training gives permission to a leader to have oversight over them. It is where you submit to the authority of a leader to give you timely input, to correct you, to tell you, no, please don't do that. In fact, a leader may say, you are late, go back home. Now, if you don't have the right attitude and you start to become rebellious, you literally circumvent your own leadership. Because a true leader is not innate to get something from the mentor. A leader wants what is best from that. And this is where you have to distinguish corrupted leadership from true leadership. Because a true leader is not in it to gain something from you. It's not there to use you. I'm not talking about this corrupted and defective leadership that's circulating around society. I'm not talking about godfatherism. No. I'm talking about a true leader whose mandate is to raise leaders, is to develop leaders, is to see that the leaders come along who are better than him or her and go further ahead. So please understand what I'm saying here. In a true leadership environment, true leadership development environment, the apex leader, meaning the leader who is providing mentoring, will give sometimes challenging assignments, if you like, or challenge or some tough challenges. But that challenge is not to damage the mentee, is to help the mentee become better. So that's why in the first session last week, we're saying that a true leader believes in people, values people. Because if you don't value people, you will damage them. Valuing the people is why you give them your time to see them grow through training, through modeling, through mentoring, through monitoring. Because you want to see them better. Because you can see the leadership potential in them and you want to see that come to life. That's why you mentor. But the mentee or the leader in training must also give the permission to the leader to work with them and help them and become better. Now, let's move on. Now, this is another aspect which is motivating. And here, if you like, the apprentice can stand on his 2 feet now, or on her 2 feet. And you can say, you know what, go ahead and do it. You've received input. Go ahead. You do it. Let me tell you the story quickly of how the lion's pride works. So you will see that when lion cubs are born, You see them rolling over their parents. They will be scratching. They will be, jumping all over the place. They will look very troublesome, particularly those males among them. You see them biting into each other, play fighting. All that is good. What do you think the parents will do? The lioness and the lion, they'll just be watching them. Now, when a time comes to learn about hunting, you see them, they will watch their parents hunt. They will sit in their den, maybe on a rock, and they will be watching the parents hunt. They'll be thinking, one day I'm going to be taking down an antelope like that. And they'll be interested, they'll be eager, but they are not quite ready. They are not strong enough. They are not mature enough. They don't have the skill, the stealth to move into position. They don't have it. They're still rough on the edges. But the time comes when they grow and they can now join in the hunting. And the parent will say, you just follow me. You just see them also going. But sometimes some of them, their eagerness gets the better of them and they jump before they should. And they alert the antelope and the antelope escape. And they become hungry for that night. But as they continue to grow, the time comes when they've now watched their parents. They've watched the positioning to go for a strike, for the kill. And they too are learning it. But all that time, they are in the pride. They are immersed into the culture of the pride, into the system of the pride, into the ways of the pride. They are learning every day. They are seeing the movement every day. They will see how the male lion will roar. And they say, oh, the male lion will think, one day I'm going to be roaring like that. And if they roar before they shoot, the male lion, the older one will say, shut up there. It's not your time yet. But that young lion will say, yes, sir, it's okay. I know I'm going to roar sometime, but for now, I'm not the I'm not the boss here. Okay, all of that is part of the learning, isn't it? But the time comes when they are trained, they are grown. And do you know what the male lion, the older male lion, do you know what they do to the younger males? If anybody knows, put it in the chat. I'll help you. They chase them away from the pride. Why? They do not encourage incest. They will never allow the male lions to mate with their sisters or with their mother. So they chase them away from the pride to go and form their own pride. Now you're saying, we have trained you, we've given you input, you've been raised, now you're not, you used to have males now. You know, the way you say to a young man, you say, you have mustache now. You know that expression. Okay. You say, now you can now go form your pride. You've been trained. Now you can do it. And at this point, you are trusting that they've taken the input, that they've learned well. And if ever they are challenged, if another lion comes from another place to challenge them, they stand their ground and say, my father trained me. So if you ask you, by what, if a young lion now roars in his own den, and another lion from somewhere is angry, and they say, how dare you roar? By what authority do you roar? The young lion will say, my father gave me the authority. As a matter of fact, let me say this to you. And this is one of the failings in our society. If we are training our young men and young women well, we should have occasions, almost like ceremonial ones, I would say, I suggest, that our men, our young men, are being authorized into manhood. Almost like a ceremony to say, we now recognize that you are a man. Go ahead, you have my blessing. I have to say to you, I had that from my dad. My dad literally inducted me into manhood. I knew when that happened. That day, I suddenly felt very, very, almost invisible. It was the first time my dad would say, so Kunle, what's your plan? It was no longer saying, just go and do this. God, no. He now asked, so what's your plan? I knew that our relationship changed that day. I felt like I was also a man in the house, even though I was still looking to the man of the house. So ultimately, your authority will be questioned, and people will ask you, how dare you do this? Where did you get your authority from? I mean, I look at my apex leader, Jesus, the leader of all leaders. They challenged him and said, how dare you do this in society? By what authority do you do these things? Do you know what Jesus said? I have been authorized by my Father. A leader will always have his authority questioned. Your dream, you want to transform society? Never you think that that's just going to be a bed of roses. Well, do you know that even a bed of roses has thorns in it? So leadership is not this aberration that's going on where we think it's a perpetual holiday of enjoyment. Oh, now I have servants, I have a lot of money, I'm the one calling the shots, I just order anything I want, and I have access to all the funds. Let me tell you, what we see in most of our society, I'll call it an aberration. That's not leadership, or corruption, if you like. Your leadership authority will be challenged. Expect it. It will be challenged. And you better know the authority by which you do what you do. And hopefully, you have been trained. Number one, you understood that, or you come to an understanding that your leadership is a divine element that's trapped inside of you. Is a leader as ordained by your maker. But also, your leadership potential has been subjected to training and development. So you can say, not only do I have a divine mandate, but I've also been trained. This is not just raw elements you're saying. This is not just raw potential. I have trained potential. That's what mentoring is about. That is this mandate of multiplying leadership, is turning leadership potential to developed potential that can produce. It's turning to production-ready potentials. Or should I say, it's turning a potential leader to a producing leader. It's turning leadership potential to leadership production. It is not just being seedful, it's now being fruitful and taking on the mandate to multiply fruitfulness. God has said it perfectly right. First, be fruitful because you have a seed. Then multiply, meaning your seed and the fruit that comes up from it must multiply. So by what authority do you do these things? Who gave you this authority? You better be able to say, God ordained me so, and I've been trained. So that's why you can refer to your training and say, by God's ordination, I've passed through the hand of such and such governor, such and such leader, such and such leader who have trained me. They've helped me to gain credibility. What you get from your leader trainers is credibility. Not the divine authority. Your divine authority comes from God, but the credibility of leadership comes from training, comes from having been helped into the process where you're not able to produce. So your dream will no doubt and must be put to the test And while being put to the test, will be challenged. That's the key point. When it's challenged, you better have an answer. When they asked Jesus, by what authority you do this? Do you know what they did? First, he said, my authority is from my Father. But he also said, I passed through the training of John the Baptist. He said, I will ask you a question. By whose authority does John the Baptist teach? Because Jesus, even though he was Lord of Lords, even though he was King, even though he was the Savior, he submitted to the baptism of John the Baptist. Baptism is not just a day affair where you just do somebody water and say, go away. No, it's a school. The word baptism means immersion. You immerse someone. Is the same word for enrollment. So when you go to University of Lagos, you are baptized into University of Lagos. You are immersed into that school of learning or school of discipleship. If we use the ancient words, you will call University of Lagos, Cambridge, you call them the baptistry. That's where you immerse people into a way of thinking. You shape their thinking through systematic learning. Do you know that back in the day, the leaders such as Aristotle, such as Plato, they had what they call schools of thought. And they move around with their disciples, their apprentices, and those people learn from them. But each time they are with their leader, they are in school. They are learning from a school of thought. It's philosophy, it's way of thinking. That's where the idea of school comes from. School of thought. All right, let's move on. Ultimately, the culmination of this process is to see a movement birth. And think about this like a cycle. If it's done right, it becomes a virtuous cycle. If it is done wrong, it becomes a vicious cycle. And can I suggest to you that what we are describing here, is being done all the time? The difference is the outcome that is being produced. You are either raising destructive leaders or you are raising productive leaders that give life and positive change to society. But what you have just described, is going on all the time. Look at your environment and see the leaders that have been produced. They literally go through this process. If there's any leadership that you admire, they also go through this process. So this is happening all the time. As we speak, there are some people who are with some leaders and all they're thinking is, oh, what a fantastic way to steal. When I get there, now I know I can take my professorship. I will take, my leader has doctorate in stealing. I'm going to get professorship in stealing. I'm going to take it to the next level. Because they have watched that leader steal. They have participated in the stealing. They have also been supervised to steal. They have been said, okay, now you go and become the governor or something and be stealing. And it has unfortunately becomes a movement. So all of this is happening. The question is, can we have the alternative, refined, purified, the original form of leadership? Can we have a restoration of true leadership? And let's not delude ourselves. This is not going to happen in a day. No, not in a year. This is a long journey. This is also a difficult journey. Because when things are spoiled, you first need to learn how to clean the environment. To convince people that how they've always done things is not the way to do it is challenging, because sometimes you can successfully relocate people from a place that they are, but you may find it hard to change their mind. People can travel from Nigeria to New York and still carry Nigeria fully intact in their minds. They can go from Britain to California, and you will now be able to get Britain out of them. They carry Britain fully in their mind to California. So all they know about Britishness is what they'll be doing. You can take an American from America to Zimbabwe and never get America out of his mind, because that is their mindset and their culture. To challenge and help in that transformation of the mind of people is a very hard job. Do you know that Moses successfully led people out of Egypt, but he struggled to get Egypt out of their minds? They were still saying, you know what, let's raise another set of leaders to go back to Egypt. And that was the biggest frustration of Moses. He said, you, these people, you are very difficult to deal with. So, well, let's not kid ourselves that this is an easy journey. It's not. Anyway, let me try to wrap up. Movement is what you create when you multiply leadership. It is transitioning your legacy to another generation. You see, ultimately, a leader must pass on the baton. But you see, when you talk about a movement, you can also think of this like an orchard, where you're having an orchard of oranges. It does not mean that the oranges that were planted before have died. Not necessarily. They can still be there, but the orchard is growing. It means there are many more orange trees, and it becomes a forest. In time, the older ones will pass away, yes, but hopefully you now have a forest so that even when one is taken away, other will say, yeah, you have done a good job. We can continue to grow the forest. So the slogan is multiply. Not only be fruitful, multiply. Isn't that what our great Lord, our Father, said? And it was addressing humans. I'm not talking about religion here, please. It was talking to human beings, male and female. This is why leadership is not a gender, it does not belong to any one gender. It is to the male as well as to the female. It said to them, be fruitful. Woman, be fruitful. Man, be fruitful. Male, be fruitful. Female, be fruitful. And he said to them also, multiply. It's not enough to have just you multiply what you have been given. How do we work to see this happen? Everyone already has nature, the nature of leadership. That's why when people begin to disrespect you, sometimes something just rises in you and say, that's enough. I'm not taking it anymore. That is your leadership spirit rising up there. The gap is that it needs nurturing. So when we're talking about seeing a movement grow, it must be carefully nurtured. Just like, when people planted vegetables, you have a garden or a nursery, don't you? You carefully work on that, and then you transition to the bigger field. Or if you have ever worked in a poultry, as I have, you carefully nurture the day old. That is a very delicate aspect of the life of the chicken. From the hatchery to the day one, to seeing that the temperature is right, that they have water, they have feed, it's not too cold, it's not too hot, because any of those things can just totally, change the outcomes. So nurturing, the care. So nurturing, equipping, the training, consistent, sustained, intentional training, and empowering. You are, see, that's why we say leadership is not about getting power for yourself. It's about empowering others. It's about releasing power. So you can see how this is already challenging the example that we see in our contemporary society. We're saying this is why things do not work. This is why everyone wants to run away from a country. Because you're saying that society is disintegrating, is failing, primarily because of failed leadership. So a leader cannot be a complainer to say, oh, it's not good, it's not right. No, a leader says, I can see that it is not as it should be, and I accept responsibility to be part of the change and to see that change happen. So you nurture, you train, and you release a leader. But you also understand that it's not enough for you to develop your personal leadership. You must also see this happen around you. So you, everyone here, you are obligated to mentor. It's part, as you are developing, you are also multiplying. That is why, as a tree, as an orange tree is growing, is bearing its fruit, isn't it? But that fruit contains seed. And that seed, if it drops on the ground, is going to grow. That does not mean that the orange, the parent orange, has gone away. So meaning you don't have to be perfect to be a leader, to also train others. But you must be on the journey. You are on the journey, and you are bringing people along on the journey, and you are you are also submitting to under accountability, so that other people can say, hey, you know what, that's not good enough. So that you can constantly be under. So the fact that a leader has been released does not mean that they stop mentoring, they stop being under mentoring. I'll say this way. Mentoring, for me, is a lifelong adventure, because accountability is a lifelong requirement. A leader must always be accountable to someone, not only to the followers, but also to a leader that the leader looks up to. Otherwise, if you think now I've gone beyond correction, I've gone beyond receiving input, you will destroy yourself, guaranteed. Someone must be able to say, stop. That is not good enough. Someone must be able to say that to you at any point in your growth. For me, at any point in I want to have people who say, Kunle, what you've just done is stupid. Can you please stop that and go correct it now? And I also want to have a circle of friends who say, Kunle, no, that's embarrassing. You cannot not have accountability as a leader. You will self-destruct. And what you are saying is this cycle of movement has to be continuous. Has to be continuous. Ultimately, a leader must leave a legacy. Ultimately. Now, the succession plan of leadership is key, because leadership is a failure without succession. So every leader should work towards raising other leaders who will take their place. You are not permanent. See, I live in the UK, right? It's an example that's just literally been lived in front of us. 3 days ago, we still had our coin, Her Majesty the Queen. Just think about that. She's someone that everyone saw all the time, either on TV or if you have seen her walk by somewhere. I mean, she was just literally part of everyone's life. You could see her effect everywhere. But just overnight. So no human entity is permanent. You only live on through your legacy. And that's why you raise leaders. Not to imbibe your physical attributes, no, but to carry on the vision, the legacy, the work and the legacy, and to build on it. A true mentor will not destroy the work of his leader. Rather, will build on it and make it better. I was trained by Dr. Miles Monroe. I had direct training from him. And I will refer to him all the time. Even though my divine leadership mandate comes from God, but my credibility comes through the hands through whom I've passed. I've been privileged to be trained by Dr. Miles Monroe and Dr. John Maxwell. I refer to them. If you hear me speak 10 words, you probably hear 5 come from what they taught me. That's right. I'm not ashamed. See, this whole arrogance of trying to be an original is just not helpful. You are already original by your creation, yes, but because your credibility lands on the work of others, you should never lose sight of that or pretend as if you just got all this on my own. You say, I just got this in on my own. Oh, I'm just one that I've not seen before. We don't need that kind of leadership. That is an egocentric leadership. It does not help anyone. We don't need it. We've had enough of all that. What we are after is society better today than it was yesterday? And are we going in the right direction? Will it be better tomorrow as well? That's what's important to us. Your personality is not what we're after. We don't want to clone ourselves to be like you, please. What we want to know is, will the children be all right? Will our schools continue to function well? Will the economy continue to function well? Will our political system continue to function well? Can we still lift up our heads as citizens, or are we going to be hiding our passports? Are we going to be ashamed when we stand with other nations? These are the real issues. We don't need to sound like you, please. Please get over yourself. Sorry, my passion is just coming out of there. But you can see the thing I'm angry about. Every leader has things they really want to see change. So, as a leader that is being trained and growing in your own particular space and time, recognize that succession is key to leadership. Without succession, everything a leader has done is a waste. And it's about seeing more people come and never, ever stop. So, do you and will you have a succession plan? Thank you for listening. I honor you for coming along. I honor you. I do not respect. Look, I do not think you're inferior to me because I'm the one speaking. No. I hope you become even better, far better than I am. And that's all I live for. I want to see leaders who are better than me in every way. If I can do that, then I'm succeeding in my leadership. And hopefully, I'm also not stopping. I'm also improving and learning from others as well. God bless you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, my dear, very good friend, Kunle Banwo. This has been very, very inspirational. It's been a life-changing experience, and I'm sure everyone on this platform has been thoroughly blessed. Uh, this is amazing. I mean, this is something that needs to go out there for everyone to hear about. Thank you very much for that powerful session. I know probably some of us will have one or two questions that we might want to ask. The floor is open for us to ask questions. The proof that you are learning is that you are asking questions. If you are not asking questions, it does not really show that you are really learning anything.
I
Anybody
love
has
I
a
love
question?
what you just said, my friend. If I can echo your voice,
Yeah,
just so that people can appreciate what you just said.
yeah,
True learning only really happens through questioning.
yeah,
When I share information, I'm saying what I know.
yeah,
It may not be what you're interested in.
yeah,
Your question shows what you're really interested in and
yeah,
what's going on in your mind. And
exactly,
that's how you get into the mind of a trainer or a teacher.
exactly. Thank you very much. Any question from the floor? This has been so transformative. I was literally transported as he was speaking. And I'm sure that's the same experience with everyone. Probably maybe I should just try and open the floor. Basically what we are doing in School of Transformational Leadership uh, is to try to raise aspiring leaders. I love to call them aspiring leaders. They may not necessarily be leaders that people already know. They are people just coming up to become leaders. Uh, as aspiring leaders, because we understand that one of the fundamental problems in our society in Africa is a problem of leadership. How do we, because I've seen it happen many times, uh, I know that one of the biggest problem in Africa is transitioning leadership, changing from one leadership to another leadership is a huge problem. And we want to get it right at this time. How do we as a society cultivate uh, a tradition, or how do we as a society cultivate an attitude of seamless transitioning of leadership?
Mm. I love the question you asked, my friend. Um, well, can I say, welcome to the School of Transformational Leadership. That's what a platform like this cultivates. Anything you leave alone will disintegrate. You know that law of, what's that law? Is entropy.
Entropy, yeah.
Yes, when you leave something alone, it's not going to get better. It's just going to be rot. If even a house is a castle,
Yeah.
if you stop maintaining it, if you don't do anything to it, if you don't live there, come and visit in 10 years. Yeah. You're going to see some new householders. One of their names will be called RAT. Another will be called Roach. Another will be cockroach. Then you find a lot of birds nesting there. Because anything left to its own devices will just disintegrate. Now, why is it, and this is my question, in certain societies, I know you live in the United States. Can I ask you, my friend, can you put a car on the road without having gone through driver's training and licensing? Can you ever put a car on the road?
That's impossible.
Exactly. Now we care about the cars we drive and our roads, that we mandate that people must go through training. And we have a robust system to do it, to monitor it, to certify it. So does that suggest that we care more about our cars than our own lives, than our own society? Whereas when it comes to leadership, particularly in certain places, you don't see any intentional effort towards saying, This is an outcome we want, and these are the processes and the system we create to ensure that we get the outcome. Can you just step out in any society and say, oh, you know what? I'm a doctor. Call me Dr. Kunze and bring yourself. I'm going to treat you. Can anybody just step up and just say, I'm a doctor now? I feel like I was born to be a doctor and now I'm a doctor. Let me just be doctoring everybody. No, there's a system to raise doctors. And when you are raising doctors, you know you are raising doctors. If you have raised a doctor, you know you have raised a doctor because you check it, you monitor it, you model it, you literally ensure that who you are producing is a doctor. You have various exams to continue the certification. If we are not being accidental in the way doctors are raised, how do we think we can be accidental in the way leaders are raised? Nurses, carpenters, accountants. Can anybody just say, I can certify. I now have what are those certifications in accountancy? There is
ICANN.
There's ICANN, there's another one.
ACAA.
Exactly. Can I just say, oh, Kunle ACAA? I can't just claim it.
And you can't inherit it.
I can't inherit it. You can't transfer it to me. I have to be trained to be it. If we are doing all this across every other area of our life, why do we ignore crucial things like marriage, leadership? Why do we think that you just hand over a boy, your daughter to a boy and just think everything will be okay? You may be taking the biggest risk in your life. You may be putting your child in the biggest danger of her life or his life. Why do we? It does not sound like it comes out of any good reason. The most important thing that has to do with our lives, we leave them to chance. And that's my point. That we cannot not be intentional about the raising of leaders. It cannot be left to chance that, so it means what we are looking for is we're just hoping, or at best, playing poker and gamble with our lives. When are we going to stop all that? That's my question. That's the reason why leadership has always been a problem. That's the reason why the quality of leadership is getting poorer and poorer all the time. That's why transition leadership has been a failure. Because you are just hoping that somebody will come with a personality that is very strong. It's always been a personality cult. Whereas, when you talk about doctors, you don't really care what the name of the doctor is, do you? You just want to know this person is a good ophthalmologist, is a good neurosurgeon. You don't care what the name is. You don't even care what country they come from. You don't care what tribe they come from. This is a good surgeon. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any other question before we close in this session and move to the next one? So thank you very much, my dear good friend. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your patience. And we thank you for taking us through the process of the mandates to multiply leadership. We pray that in our lifetime, we will all see a new continent emerge out of Africa.
I echo the amen loud and clear. And thank you for your leadership, because this is what we're doing here in this platform is a leadership act. To not leave it to chance, but to say, let's come together to intentionally influence the odds. Thank you, my friend.